the smaller agencies look at the bigger agencies and go, well, we need to model what they're doing. They're going after 1,000 different niches. I need to do that. Oh, you have a big H on your website? Let me put a big T on my website. I'm like, what the hell does H stand for?
All right. Hi, everyone. Chase here from HighLevel with another episode of the HighLevel Spotlight Sessions, where we showcase awesome marketers doing awesome marketing, or in this case, who have done awesome marketing and now are sort of sherpaing other younger or growing agencies down the path. I'm joined by Jason Swenk today, the creator of the Agency Playbook. Jason founded a multi-million-dollar agency that worked with brands like AT&T, Hitachi, Lotus Cars, which he sold in 2012 after 12 years of growth. Jason, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hey, man, thanks for having me on.
How many agencies would you say you've worked with at this point?
It's too many to count. Literally, it's, yeah, I mean, we kind of fell into it. And I think the last I looked, we've been doing it for 6 years now. And it's been pretty amazing and just seeing the transformation of all these agencies as well, over the years is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's got to be rewarding. I mean, agency, when you do it right and you have success, it's not just a business, but it's a lifestyle change too, right? Kind of really frees you up, which I think is why so many people are attracted to it.
Well, I mean, we think that by creating an agency, we can live anywhere and we create all the freedom, and they get into it and then they realize, oh my God, like it's not that way because it's very complex. But if you set up the right systems and you put the right team in place and you have the right people around you, it can create that freedom to pick and choose to do what you love to do, or even, and then the funny thing that happens is when you're able to do that, then a lot of people will start knocking on your door to come buy you. Right. Like I always tell people, don't design a business to sell, like especially in the agency world, because your chances are like slim to none. But if you create a business that doesn't need you for like every day and it's hugely profitable, there'll be a lot of us banging down your door to come buy you.
Well, let's come back to that because that's the last point that I have written down. So I definitely want to loop back to that point. But the first thing I want to talk to you about is positioning, right? So you started your agency, you offer services. The truth is there's a ton of agencies that offer the same services out there. And I heard a quote, something you said that I really liked, which was, you need to make yourself the choice rather than a choice. How do you do that?
Yeah. Well, you got to realize a couple things. You can't serve everybody, and you have, right? Like, and especially when you're starting out, you have to try everything. So this really doesn't, like, it's very hard for someone just getting into it. So when I started my agency in 99, I'm old now, I guess, right? Like this is when Al Gore invented the internet. And the people like listening are like, who's Al Gore? That's probably even the worst part.
No, come on.
Google didn't even exist. And so when you start out, you're really just taking on any kind of business.
Right.
And then what happens over time is your business builds a little bit based on referrals, but you just keep getting the same or lesser that keeps coming to you. And then you keep hitting your head against, the glass ceiling that you're about. And the reason is because you look like everybody else. And the smaller agencies look at the bigger agencies and go, well, we need to model what they're doing. They're going after 1,000 different niches. I need to do that. Oh, you have a big H on your website? Let me put a big T on my website. I'm like, what the hell does H stand for? Like these big companies are not using their website to get business. And so it's tricking the smaller ones. So in order to position yourself to be the choice, you have to tell the right story. Picture this. Let's say I see you at a conference and I come up to you and I'm like, hey, Chase, my name is Jason. I am the best agency advisor in the world. I sold my agency. It was really big, had lots of people. Don't you want to be like me? You'd be like, you're an asshole. Like, get away from me. Right? Like, who cares? But if I come up to you and I say, hey, Chase, why'd you come to the conference? Oh, cool. Tell me a little bit more about the agency and what's your biggest challenges. What I'm doing is I'm asking questions. So I'm changing the focus to you. It's just like Donald Miller breaks down this framework really good. And we always did this as well. So it's nothing new, but I just like how they explain it.
Sure.
He mentions it as like, you have to position yourself as the trusted advisor, and you have to make them the star in their story. So like, I always use the analogy, if like that first scenario, I'm coming up to you as Batman, so that makes you Robin. And I don't know too many people that want to dress
Nobody
up
wants to be Robin.
in freaking tights, right? Right. But Batman needs Alfred in order to advise him.
Nice.
So, and the
everybody loves Alfred.
Yeah. So you need to, in order to become Alfred to your clients, and you have to pick a niche or a particular technology that you have a chance to owning it. Right. So back in the day, right, we leveraged Sitefinity and Sitecore and, you know, Microsoft and like some of these up and coming brands and tools. That was our niche. And then we started getting into healthcare and automotive. But nowadays, like, you need to get even more specialized, right? Like, I have some clients that dominate the personal injury attorney, and they just do SEO, right? Like, and over the years, they've got a multi-million-dollar agency because they're the best, rather than trying to do everything.
It's a fantastic point, and I love the Alfred analogy because I say this all the time. You don't want to be the guy who promised me anything. You want to be the guy who I'm like, he has the answers and I need to stick close to them, because that person will stick with you whether it's an uptime or a downtime, and there'll always be up and down in people's businesses. If you're the guy that just promised me stuff, the second it's not happening, I hate you. But if you're Alfred, you're the trusted advisor that I know I need around, and I'm going to keep paying you up or down, especially in the down, because you're the guy that's going to get me back to the up. So I love that. That's awesome. All right, point number 2 that I have here is about prospecting. We talk a lot about prospecting. You mentioned inbound and outbound, but then you mentioned a third channel, which I thought was interesting, which is strategic partner. Can you talk to us about that? What does that mean? How do you set that up? What's the benefit of it?
Yeah, so most agencies just rely on one channel, right? And it gets them to a certain level, or if that channel goes away. So, you know, like, I hardly get on Facebook anymore just because I can't take all the ads I keep seeing from agency people, right? Like, it's like, oh my God, like, if I get sold another course, I'm going to shoot myself. And so if Facebook ever changes, which there's probably changes coming, right, then your business is screwed. Same thing on, well, outbound, I think, will always work. But if you used a cold calling company, you're probably screwed, right? But this partnership channel, and people can leverage this. So at our last digital agency experience, we had one of the members talk about, and they went to my staff and they were going like, I'm going to show Jason up, because Jason always talks about referrals aren't scalable, right? Like, I always just bash. I'm like, if your business is relying on word of mouth, you're done. You're doomed, right? And he's like, I built my whole business off these referrals. But what he did is he built his whole business off strategic partnerships. So he developed an outbound channel in order to go after the people that are actually going after the same type of clients, but in a different market. So for example, if I'm going, like, obviously I help agencies. So if I wanted to do this, I would reach out to software tools that are going after agencies, maybe HubSpot, maybe Digital Marketer, maybe you guys, right? Like, and I'd be like, how can I help you? And here's the deal. Like, people always reach out to me and be like, hey, Jason, you got the biggest agency list. Can you send out an email and I'll pay you 20%? I'm like, screw the 20%. Like, you just asked me for something. I feel dirty. Like, I feel used. I'm not a whore. So, but if they treated me like a bank and they actually made deposits before they actually did the withdrawals, I'd probably do anything. Like, case in point, I had a person, they do they do a lot of LinkedIn strategy for outreach. He literally was like, Jason, I love the podcast. I love all the shows. I want to help you out. I want to do all your outreach on LinkedIn, or the strategy for it. And I was like, okay, let's try it out. Most of the time I turn that stuff down because free is never free, right?
Right, of course.
And so I was like, all right, let's try it out. But it worked really well. And so then I was like, cool, you made lots of deposits. Now I recommend them all the time. So it's like, find the people that are going after the same type of people and see how you can help them out. and where 2 plus 2 equals 12.
And that goes back to the first point of differentiating yourself. If you are doing something different, I think it's easier to find the strategic partnerships, right? Because it's like, hey, we do this one thing and we do it this way that's really different. And you guys don't do that at all. So why don't we partner up? And it's like, you can recommend us people, we'll recommend you people. That's a really smart way to grow, especially if you're early on and you do find something that's actually different. Like I've seen a few examples in the community lately. It's like something really specific. But
I mean, yeah, it all comes down to a framework that I always follow, right? And a lot of people, they think, oh, I need to grow my business, so let me think about some kind of LinkedIn hack or Facebook hack. And they immediately start in kind of like what I look at as like system 4. But they have to start at the foundation, like, which is gaining clarity. Who do you want to become? Who do you want to go after? How are you going to help them? How are you going to position in the right way? What's the right offering? And then you can get into the prospecting. So they're kind of like skipping ahead. That's why a lot of people are struggling all the time.
That's great. But I love the idea. I love that we pointed out that there's a third channel. So it's like, if you're just starting out, you're trying to get your first client or your first couple of clients, have an inbound strategy, have the outbound strategy, but also think about, it's almost like a shortcut. Because if you can land a partnership like that, they might say, hey, I've got 20 clients right now. They could all use this. How about we start with one, prove it, and then I'll give you more. Yeah.
And especially like, I always a little reluctant when like people are like shortcut, because it's just always hard work and determination, right? But yeah, like it can speed up the sales or the process, because you're just going like all over, like the guns are just shooting in every which way. Now you have a target to aim for, and then you just build that relationship. But you have to kind of go into it of like, how can it work for them first?
Sure.
And then because if you go into it just all me, you're that creepy dude at that conference that people are like trying to like avoid.
Good point. Good disclaimer. All right. So the next thing I wanted to talk to you about was, I heard you talking about transitioning from a founder operator, which is pretty much what everyone starts out as, to a CEO. What can someone do ahead of time to start making that transition easier or possible at all? I think a lot of people just get stuck and they can't ever make that transition.
Well, I think because they don't have that clarity of what it really looks like, right? They think that they just need to react to the market. They need to, do all the sales. They need to do all the work. They need to do all the project management. Good God, like you're doing everything and you have no life. And then you look at it, and then maybe you hire 1 or 2 people, but you're still doing everything, right? Because you're delegating out tasks. So you're right. And then you have to check on those tasks rather than delegating outcomes. Like you're not a leader. You're not a manager yet. You're just like going, do this, this, this. And then you're a mom hovering, right? Or a dad hovering. And that kid can never learn how to ride the bike. So I think you need to define kind of what is the right roles to know, like when you can transition to being the CEO versus the owner. So the first one, and this only applies to people that are building a team. If you're not building a team, you're a freelancer. Okay. And there's nothing wrong with that, right? Like my business now is kind of like a freelancer, very high paying freelancer, but right. But
the best kind.
And how I look at it is, if I die, as long as my content goes out, which like we have content for over a year now, right? Like the business will be good. But then as soon as that content stops, the business starts tanking, right? So that's what I'm talking about. There's nothing bad about being a freelancer. But the first thing is setting the vision and communicating it to your team, okay? So think about, we're on a boat from New York to London, and I drive the boat for about 10 hours. I'm like, fuck, I'm tired. Like I need to go to bed. And I tell my team, well, wake me up if the boat ever changes course, which if you've ever driven a boat, it changes course like every minute. So these guys are waking me up every minute. And I'm like, oh, here. And then I go back, and it just keeps happening. Well, if I just told them where the damn boat was going, they could make a better decision. Right. And they could actually get to London, and we would actually get the wrong people off the boat. If they didn't want to go to London, if they just wanted to stay in New York, stay in New York. So that's the first thing. Set the vision, communicate it often. The other thing is you have to be the coach and the advisor to your leadership team, not the whole company. It may be as small, it might be the whole company now.
Okay.
But as you grow, you're just going to be for that leadership team. And then you show them how they can be the coach and advisor and mentor to the people under them. Because as you build more people, like a lot of times people get about 15 people and then they're stressed out because they're still not the CEO. They're just the owner. And they're like, if I hire 30 people, that means even more. I can't even handle 15.
Mm-hmm.
If they just realize this kind of mental switch, they'd be so much better, like coach and mentor them. The other thing is assist sales, understand the financials, and be the face of the organization. There has to be a face to your logo, right? People have to recognize you. And then people are like, well, then people are always going to want you. Perfect example of someone doing this and not actually having to deliver all their clients is Gary Vaynerchuk with VaynerMedia. Like, do you really think he's going to work on your project? You don't want that dude to work on your project. Like the most ADD person, which I am too, like never get shit done. Like we come up with a strategy, but if you want us to execute, we are going to be horrible. So those are the roles. Now I'm going to put a disclaimer or warning out there. When you're able to achieve, or if you're able to achieve this, you're going to be completely depressed for a while until you realize this. Because the business, what you're going to do is you're going to start going into meetings. You're just going to start meeting with your team and they're going to say, I got it. I'm good. And then you're going to go home and you're going to be like, the business doesn't need me anymore. And I want you to remember this and say, the business doesn't need you for the shit you used to do. It needs you to be the leader, the CEO, to move this past, right? We've never, like all of us going through scaling, we've never done this before. So it's all new. And so you just got to realize that it happened to me. It happens to all my clients, and I just slap them around. I tell you, you didn't listen to me with the disclaimer. And then they're like, oh yeah. Like, and then they get all happy because now they have the freedom, right? The freedom that we all want to pick and choose and work on the stuff that they want.
True. That's a good point. You know, you brought up another topic that I wasn't going to talk about because I feel like I talk about it all the time, but I honestly never get the insight that I'm looking for secretly, which is around clarity. And when you work with people in your group, I ask people all the time, what's the big goal? And nobody ever has like an answer that they just fire off. It's always like we hit this number and we're marching towards this number.
Make more money.
We're hoping to do it in this time frame. But one of the things that Matt Coffey and I used to always argue about was this point. And I was like, we never set our macro major goal. Like, what is the, I don't want to call it $1 million mission because that's putting but like, what is it? We don't know. And I knew he didn't know. It's like, do you want to sell this? Do you want it to be 20 million, 30 million, 50 million? And it was kind of like, well, let's just keep working really hard and that answer will come to us. But I always thought, no, I think it's really important to like know exactly what the mission is. How do you help people? Do you push to get people to there, or do you think it's okay to like not truly know and just kind of head in the right direction?
Well, I don't think, it all takes time, and some people take a lot longer to line up and connect all the dots. And we have to look back in the past to figure out how to kind of dictate what works for us, right? And I look at it as kind of like a process of elimination of like, right? But I truly believe like you have to really dig deep and you have to be aware that you need to find this out, because if you don't know who to hire, you don't know who to work with, and everything's all screwed up and everything's going to be dependent on you. And that's pretty scary, right? Like you want to hire smarter people that can make better decisions. And so like, I'll give you an example for me, right? Our goal is to be the #1 resource in the world for certain agency owners, not all of them, right? Like we only want to work with the ones that want to grow, scale, have fun, not douchebags, right? Like that's why I'm like, not everybody, right? Like, and I don't want to work with like the regular traditional agencies, the madmen, like they're hopeless, right? Like they're, if you haven't got on the digital, playground, you're done, right? You're just too old to adapt. And so, but then the why is the most important. And Simon Sinek, like everybody, go check out the YouTube video or link it up somewhere for them because it's very important. Like
Okay.
our why is going back to when I ran an agency. Now, when I started an agency, I didn't even know what an invoice was. I remember my first client asking me to send him an invoice. I was like, what's an invoice? Like, I didn't know this. Like, I couldn't Google it. It
You're
wasn't
kind of going to need
around.
to figure that out, kid.
Right? And there's so much. And so I kept telling myself, I'm like, I want to create the resource that I wish I had when I was running my agency. That is our North Star. That's how we make all decisions. And I'll even give you a way of how we use it for the team to make better decisions. And so we were writing an article or a blog post on the top 20 conferences for agency owners to go to. My team put it together. 3 of them were complete. Like I hated the organizer, like literally like with a passion. I was like, take that shit out, like get them out of here. And they go, is it a good conference? I'm like, yeah, but I hate them. Like, take it out. And they're like, but is it a resource that you wish you knew about if you were an agency and you didn't know that? Or yes, okay, leave it in, right?
Nice.
So, right, it even calls you on your bullshit.
Yeah.
So, like, that's why it's so important to come up with the why and to work with someone, in order to, get there. And just be careful on who you work with. Like, form a board of advisors that you trust, or and that kind of stuff. And right, don't work with an agency coach. And no, I'm not an agency coach. I don't work one-on-one with people anymore. So just be careful because I see so many bad things out there.
Yeah. Well, that's a really good point, actually. And I think you just sort of shifted my mentality around the question that I asked, which is that makes sense. It's not so important to have this is the goal. When we hit it, it's over. Or when we hit it, this happens. It's more important to just figure out what your North Star is, because it just always leads you towards where you're going.
Yeah, because most people just go, what's the goal? I want to make a gazillion dollars so I can sell it. I'm like, well, how are your employees going to get on board with this? Like, they're not. Like, they're not going to get excited. How does that make you make better decisions? It actually makes you make probably shittier decisions. So,
yeah,
it's just like, that's why I always tell people, I'm like, find that passion. Like, what's that thing that you would do for free that you could just crush?
Right.
And then you can't go wrong. Like, I was a person coming in for a workshop tomorrow. They're trying to, I forced him. I was like, you have to pick a niche before you come in, before we go through this positioning. And he's like, well, there's kind of between 2. I'm like, what does your gut say? He's like, what should I do? Like, I can't tell you that shit. Like, you have to figure out, what does your gut say? Most of the time it doesn't lie.
Yeah, most of the time it's pretty clear. Okay, so last question for you. As somebody who's sold an agency, which is, you already pointed out, so hard to do. If that is the goal, to build an agency up and then sell it at some point, how do you make your agency an attractive offering? Like, what is valued to people who buy agencies that most people aren't doing?
A couple things. Number one thing is be the best. Like, if you don't believe you're the best, quit or figure out a way to be the best, right? Like, look, to some people, I'm not the best, but in my eyes, I know I'm the best. And if I don't believe it, why would the hell any of you?
Right.
So that's the first thing. You have to be able to do a service or a solution and provide the results that people want. The next thing is profit. I don't care what your top line revenue is. Like, I remember I went to some conference that will be nameless because they were one of the ones that I hated.
It should have gotten yanked, but remained on the list.
And they have a pretty big certification. And this company was like, I'm the biggest blah, blah, blah certification agency. I'm like, I don't give a shit. And he was saying, like, I'm 10 million. I was like, but his profit was like 1%. I'm like, you should quit or make a major change. Like, that stinks. Yeah. It's profit. And this is after you get paid. Okay. So a lot of times people try to, make their numbers look better. They pay themselves like 0. And then they're like, well, I got 50% margins. I'm like, well, do you pay yourself like you would pay someone coming in to run the business? So profit. I'll give you even some kind of range for evaluation. Also, too, monthly reoccurring revenue is important. with long-term contracts that you can transfer. So you got to think, when someone comes in to buy you, they're looking at what's the future going to be like. They need some predictability. If you're all just projects, now we were 80% projects, but it was a different time when we sold. Okay. And we just built a huge pipeline and a big awareness around what we were going after. So we were the best at that stuff. So at that time, but, so let's say you're under $1 million in revenue and EBITDA, which is net profit. Okay. So let's say your agency's $1 million in total top line, but your profits maybe 100,000. You're probably your valuation for your agency is probably 2x that. So you're probably only worth 200,000, meaning you're going to get a little bit of cash and a lot is going to be paid out over time on all performance, right? So you're not worth that much. But if you can get over $1 million in EBITDA, which is net profit, right? And let's say you're at 5 million top line, $1 million in profit, you're looking at maybe a 5x. Maybe a little bit more. If you can get over the 3 million, then you're around the 8. Now, it's all dependent on what you're willing to sell it for and what someone's willing to buy.
Sure.
So, it's all across the board. But like we just had one client, we were working with, and we got them to a little over $1 million in EBITDA net profit, and they sold for close to like 7.8 million, and they got 80% in cash, which was unheard of, but we had multiple offers and that kind of stuff. So it's exciting times. You can grow through acquisitions, so you can gobble up some of the smaller agencies to get to the bigger ones. There's millions of things.
That was a great point. And to be honest, we're all sort of part of this problem, right? Everything's about becoming a 6-figure agency, 7-figure agency, but no one ever talks about the profit margin.
It's stupid. Yeah. Like I see these people going, hey, 7-figure, whatever, I'm like, okay, like it doesn't matter. It's all about your profit. And like, are you really enjoying doing the stuff? Do you have money? Yeah. Like, and here's the thing is a lot of times people will hit that, but they're actually making less than they did when they were a freelancer. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, congratulations. You made someone else rich.
Something went wrong somewhere on this path. Right. So Jason, you mentioned that you're not an agency coach. So what is it? How would you classify what you're doing now?
I'm a connector and a media company for agencies, right? So
interesting. I didn't know about the media part.
Yeah. So on the media part, think about like we produce 2 shows every week, sometimes 3 shows a week. So we try to put out more content than everybody else because that's part of our goal, right? Our goal is to be the resource we wish we had. And we want to put out this stuff entirely for free. Now, I do charge for things, right? Like, because I do like making money, and I truly believe that if someone pays for something, they're going to value it more as well, right? So like we have our agency playbook, which is Agency Framework, which is an online program that shows people the 8 systems that we're kind of alluding to, right? For like the do-it-yourselfers. Or we have what we call the Digital Agency Elite Mastermind, which like we put agency owners that are from 500,000 in revenue to 20 million together. And we like go out to my house in Colorado for a couple of days and blast up on 4-wheelers and hot air balloons and do all kinds of amazing things. So, it's those kinds of things that we do. But
do you have to be doing $500,000 to get into the group, or?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I was saying that it's for experienced agency owners. And I always tell people like we turn down a lot of people, and I always feel bad, but I'm like, but I love to see when they come back in like 6 months to a year and they're like, I'm here. And I'm like, come on, right? Like, it's like a huge celebration.
Get over here.
Yeah. Right. Because like, it's not just like, hey, you got to check, you can get in. It's more like, we need to put the right people. And like, if you go to like the digital agency elite.com, you'll see like our core values. Like it was funny the other day, someone got mad because we have a lot of people that opt in and we go through campaigns, and I'm always straightforward with people. I'm like, look, if it says Jason Bot at the bottom, that means it's automated. but I do read and respond to all. And this one person's like, you invited me to the mastermind, then you want me to apply? I'm like, you broke rule number 1, like, don't be a douchebag. Or if like people get offended by that, I'm like, okay, you're not in. Like, it's, right? So it's just, it's funny. The people that we want to be around. So
yeah. But that goes back to your advice of, taking the clients that you want, right? Like,
yeah, like I'm the most free I've ever been, right? Like I don't have to do, like, I can pick and choose and do the things I want, and I can say no to the things that I don't. And most of the time when I say no, it's like the people I don't want to be around, or if I don't want to speak at an event, like I don't want to speak at that event. Like I don't have to. And that's what that's kind of like the mission we're all on, is like, how can we help people create that want that are willing to put in the work? Because like I was telling you, there's no shortcut or silver bullet. Like you have to take all these different pieces, put them together, and then you're able to, create something pretty amazing that, why would you sell it? Right? Like I always tell people, like, use the agency to run itself, but then use that to create other things that are sellable, right? Use the agency to create
that's a good point. Because usually when you put in enough work, you do it for enough amount of time, you see an opportunity to build one of those things that is very sellable, a tool, whatever it may be. Awesome. Jason, thank you so much. So if I'm an agency doing more than $500,000 and I'm interested in that group, where do I go? And if I'm a young agency and I love what I'm hearing, where do I go to get help on that side? Perfect.
Well, on either of them, go to jasonswenk.com, and Swenk is spelled SWENK, jasonswenk.com. If you're just under the 500,000 mark, look for the agency playbook. You'll see it right at the top of the navigation. I'm not trying to hide it or anything like that. Click on that, go through the framework. And that's the cool thing. Like, all the stuff we do is like micro videos and like documents that you can use, and we're always updating. So it's perfect for you there. And then if you're above that level and you're cool and you want to learn and you want to grow, there's a mastermind link. Click there and then apply. And then if I feel that it's right for you and you're right for us, we'll have a conversation and chat, and then go from there. And then, just check out the podcast.
If you're a douche, you'll get a hard smack in the face reply.
Yeah.
No, that's okay. That's great. So jasonswenk.com. I'll put the links below. Thank you again so much for coming on the show. Thanks everybody for watching, and we will see you in the next episode.